Hi, my name is Scotty Page. I'm a professor of complex systems, political science, and economics at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. And I'd like to welcome you to this free online course called Model Thinking. In this opening lecture, I just want to do four things. First thing I want to do is I want to sort of explain to you why, I personally think it's just so important and fun to take a course in models. Second, what I'd like to do is I want to give you a sense of the outline of the course, like what we're going to cover a little bit and how it's going to be structured. Third thing is I'll talk a little bit about an online course. I've never taught an online course before. You probably haven't taken one, so I'll talk a little bit how it's structured, how it's set up, what's out there on the web, that sort of thing. And then the last thing I'll do is I'll talk about sort of how I'm going to structure particular units. So each unit will focus on a single model or a class of models. I want to give you some sense of exactly how we're going to unpack those things, analyze them, and think about them. All right? Okay, so let's get started. Why model? First reason I think is this. In order to be an intelligent citizen of the world, I think you have to understand models. Why do I say that? Well, when you think about like a liberal arts education, I think some of us classically think of sort of the great books, like this long shelf of books that everyone should know. And when the great books curriculum was formed, right, and I'll talk about this some in the next lecture, most of human knowledge didn't have models in it. Models are a relatively new phenomena, right? So if you take, whether you go from anthropology to zoology, anywhere in between, when you go to college, you'll sort of find like, oh my gosh, I'm learning models in this course. And we'll talk in a minute about some of the reasons why we're using models, right? But models are everywhere. And so in order to just be involved in the conversation, it's important these days that you can use and understand models, right? Reason number two, the reason models are everywhere, the reason they're everywhere from anthropology to zoology is they're better, right? They sort of make us clearer, better thinkers. Anytime anybody's ever run a horse race between models making, people using models to make decisions and people not using models to make decisions, the people with models do better. So models just make you a better thinker. The reason why is that they sort of weed out the logical inconsistencies. They're a crutch, right? They just, we sort of are crazy, think silly things, can't think through all the logical consequences. Models sort of tie us to the mast a little bit. And in doing so, right, we think better. We're just better at what we do. All right. Reason number three, to use and understand data. So there's just so much data out there, right? When I first became a social scientist, it would be a real effort for someone to go grab a data set. Now, there's just a ton of it. I like to think of it as a fire hose of data, but my friends who are computer scientists, they call it a hairball of data, right? Because it's just sort of all mangled and messed up. So models let us take that data, right, and sort of structure it into information and then turn that information into knowledge. And so without models, all we've just got is a whole bunch of numbers out there. With models, we actually get information and knowledge and eventually maybe even some wisdom. At least we can hope, right? Okay. Reason number four, last sort of main category of reason. And by the way, in the next four lectures, I'm going to sort of work through and unpack each of these four reasons in more depth. But I just want to sort of lay them out there, this first lecture. So reason number four, to decide, strategize, and design. So when you've got to make a decision, whether it's, whether you're the President of the United States or whether you're running your local PTO organization, it's helpful to be able to structure that information in a way to make better decisions. So we'll learn about things like decision trees and game theory models and stuff like that to just help us make better decisions and to strategize better. And also, at the very end of the class, we'll talk about design issues, right? You can use models to design things like institutions and policies and stuff like that. So models just make us better at making choices, better at taking actions. Okay, so those are the big four. Now let's talk a little bit about the outline of the course, what it's like. So this isn't going to be a typical course, not just because it's online, but because the structure of the course is very different. So most courses, like if you take a math course, it sort of starts here and sort of moves along, right, with each thing building on the thing before it. Now, the difficulty with a course like that is if you ever like fall off the train, right, fall behind, that's it, you're just lost because everything, what I'm doing in lecture 6, you need to know lecture 5, and for lecture 5, you need to know lecture 4. Well, this course is going to be very different. This course is going to be a little bit more like a trip to the zoo, right? So we're going to learn about giraffes, and then we'll go learn about rhinos, and then we'll go over to the lion cage. So if you didn't quite understand the rhinos, it's not going to hurt you too much when we go over to the lion cage, right? So it's more like, just moving from one topic to the next. They're somewhat related in that they're all sort of animals, right? But you don't need to fully know the giraffe to move to the rhino. All right, but obviously, we're not going to take, right, giraffes and rhinos. We're going to study models and importance. So what kind of models? Well, we're going to study models like collective action models. These are models where individuals have to decide how much to contribute to something that's for the public good. We'll study things like the wisdom of crowds, like how is it that groups of people can be really smart. We'll study models that have like fancy names like Lyapunov models and Markov models. These are models of sort of processes, right? So they sound scary, but they're actually really sort of fun and interesting. We'll study game theory models. We'll study something called the Colonel Blotto game, which is a game where you have to decide how many resources to allocate across different fronts. So this can be thought of as a really interesting model of war. It can also be an interesting model of firm competition or sports or legal defenses, all sorts of stuff. So we're going to just play with a whole bunch of models, everything from economic growth to tipping points, a whole bunch in between. So it should be lots and lots of fun. Okay. What's the format for this? How's this going to work? What does an online course even look like? Okay, well, let's think about it. So the first thing, there's these videos, right? You're watching one right now. I'm going to try and keep them between 8 and 15 minutes in length, right? Sometimes I might sneak to 16, but mostly I'll be between 8 and 15 minutes in length. And inside the videos, there'll be questions. So all of a sudden the video may stop and it'll say, what's the capital of Delaware? Well, actually it won't say that, but something germane, hopefully, to the lecture. So there'll be these 8 to 15 minute lectures. Each module, each section will have, somewhere between like 3 and 6 of those, right? Okay. In addition, there'll be readings. So on the wiki, you'll find links to the readings. Now, a bunch of these readings will come out of some books that I've written and one that I'm about to write about actually this course, and it'll all be free. So you'll be able to, Princeton University Press has been very generous in letting a lot of the content of my previous books be out there, so we're going to, you'll just be able to download whatever you need to look at, all right? There's some assignments. So there's an assignment on the web page. You'll see a little assignment thing, so we'll also throw out some assignments. So you can just make sure you're following what's going on with the course. And then finally, there'll be some quizzes, right? So we'll throw some quizzes out there just to make sure, hey, am I really getting this? I mean, you'll watch me and you'll think, yes, Scott gets these models, but that's not what this is about, right? This is about you understanding the models. So there'll be some quizzes, right? But all in good fun. Okay, and finally, there's a discussion forum. I mean, there's 40 to 50,000 people in this class, right? So office hours would get sort of crowded. So we're going to have a discussion forum where people can ask questions. I'll answer some. I've got some graduate students who will answer some. Other students can answer things. But it'll be a place for people to sort of share ideas, share thoughts, give feedback, and should be hopefully really useful. It's structured in a way I think that'll work for everybody. Okay, so how does it work? What's one of these sections going to look like? Well, each section of the course, right, of which there's going to be 21, is going to be focused on a particular model. Right? And so when we talk about the model, I'll say, okay, what is the model? What are the assumptions? What are the parts? How does it work? What are the main results? What are the applications? So we just sort of, talk through how the thing sort of plays out. Then I'll go into some technical details, sometimes in the same lecture that I present the model, sometimes in later lectures. And this will be, more technical stuff, a little bit more mathematics. And I'll try and be pretty clear about whether or not the math is, easy, medium, or hard. I'll let you know up front, like, okay, this may require a lot of algebra, or this is just, sort of simple logical thinking, right? So I'll be pretty clear about how much effort it's going to take to trudge through some of the examples. And then there'll be practice problems that you can work on as well. And the other thing I'm going to do in every one of these sections is talk about the fertility of the models, right? So remember before I talked about this Colonel Blotto model that could be used to model war or sports or legal defenses, right? Most of these models were developed for one purpose, but we can apply them to other purposes. So we're going to talk a lot about how, okay, now that we just learned this model, where can we apply it? Where does it, where else does it work, right? Okay, so that's it. That's sort of how it's going to work, right? Learning models is really important. Makes you a more intelligent citizen, right? Just just a more engaged person out there in the world, because so much of how people think and what people do is now based on models. Makes you a clearer thinker. That's why so many people are using models. It helps you use and understand data, and it's going to help you make better decisions, strategize better, and even design things better. So course should be really, really useful. We're going to cover a lot of topics. They don't necessarily build on the one before, right? There'll be some quizzes and videos and that sort of stuff, and this should be just a great time. All right, welcome, and let's get started. Thank you.